Hey everybody, this is Albert, and this is going to be a response, but a supportive rather than a challenging response to Ancient Hebrew Org's recent videos on questions for King James Onlyists. The first one being on what's the perfect translation in Hebrew. The second one, he has another one on second question to the KJV Onlyists. Now, what I want to discuss in this video is the whole thing that King James Version Onlyists have been bringing up on this idea of the King James Bible being God's one true Bible for this time because of English hegemony, essentially. That English, the idea is this, that, well, when the Old Testament was revealed, Hebrew was the dominant language, and therefore it was revealed to them in Hebrew. And then when the New Testament came, Greek was to be revealed to the world rather than a particular people, and Greek was the dominant language of the world, therefore it was revealed to them. And now English is the dominant language of the world, so God has revealed the one true Bible to them in English, and that's the King James Bible. Well, this breaks down at so many different levels. I mean, one barely knows where to begin. I mean, just the logical confusion of this system that they've constructed to explain this is just, it's bizarre, and it's the only thing I can say. And let me just point some things out that it's beyond the strange. So first of all, we will agree that Hebrew definitely was the language spoken by the Jews when the Old Testament was revealed, and we will agree that Greek was the dominant language at the time the New Testament was to be revealed. So there's no question. We're not even arguing that. But what exactly was being revealed for the King James Bible? I mean, what exactly was there a third testament that I'm unaware of? What's this new revelation? Where is it? Where is this? I mean, is there the even newer testament? I mean, because the previous two, these were new revelations. That's why God revealed them in this particular way. But is there like a third one that we're just missing? I don't know. Because I look at the King James Bible and it has the same books as the Bibles from previous centuries. I don't, see any big difference there. I'm basically, it's there's nothing new. So what's the revelation here? So obviously right away you've got a breakdown, because there is in fact no new revelation. It's merely another in a series of translations. It's just, there's no this is it and that isn't, or whatever. There's nothing new here. It's the same revelation. It's just a different translation of it. Fine. But that doesn't make it God's one true word, et cetera, et cetera. And unless you think maybe God made a mistake the first two times and needed to correct some things, or he changed his mind or something, I don't understand what they're getting at here. Now, let's deal with the next issue, which is this whole idea, well, even if you were to make the argument, well, every era needs its Bible in the dominant language of the period. Well, what were the Bibles prior to the King James Version? Because they don't seem to agree. I mean, what are they? But more importantly, when God revealed the Old Testament in Hebrew, Hebrew was then the spoken language of the people he wanted to reach. When God revealed the New Testament in Greek. Now, first of all, when you're dealing with the New Testament revelation, they still needed the Old Testament. So are the King James Version Onlyists claiming then that the Septuagint must also be inspired? I mean, which is what they normally argue against. But remember, since the whole world has to read it in Greek now, what's the Greek translation of the Old Testament? Because remember, they need to read, because remember, Paul keeps telling them to look at the scriptures to see that the Christian revelation is true, that it's in fact verified in the scriptures you've had from your youth. So what were they using? I guess that would be the Septuagint, huh? So I guess, but normally they don't like the Septuagint, so that right away you see all kinds of contradictions arising. But in 1611, was English the dominant language of the time? No, it wasn't. English was not the dominant language of the world. See, what's funny is they keep arguing English is the dominant language of the world, but that's in the 19th and 20th centuries English becomes the dominant language of the world, not in the 17th. That's 2 centuries beforehand. And it's a different form of English than is spoken when English became the dominant language. The English that's dominant is contemporary English. It's 19th and 20th century English and 21st century. It's not 17th century English, which is different, obviously. Just look. All you have to do is read the King James Bible. You'll see the language that's changed since then. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But that's not the language that became the dominant language of the world. In fact, and in 1611, the dominant language of the world at that point, in terms of the Christian society, was still Latin. Even among Protestants, Latin was still the dominant language of international communication. Those who were literate generally could read Latin. That it was, in fact, Latin was taught in English schools well up into the 20th century. And now, granted, they used classical Latin rather than the ecclesiastical Latin of the Catholic Church, but it's still Latin. In fact, 1687, just to give an example, Isaac Newton, when he wrote his famous treatise on universal gravitation, what was the title? It was the Principia Mathematica Philosophiae Naturalis. It was written in Latin, not in English. All the great scientists and philosophers of that time, Huygens and Leibniz and whatever, they wrote in Latin. Vernacular, now some also would have translations in their vernacular language, and vernacular was becoming more popular, but the one that would become the dominant language when a vernacular language finally became dominant, it was French, not English. So it was not until you get well into the 19th and into the 20th century that English becomes the dominant language. So, but remember that these revelations came when that was already in place. So that would mean, if you're going to make this argument, that would mean that whatever Bible is the dominant Bible would have had to have been brought to us in the 19th and 20th centuries after English was the dominant language, because it would have to be in the form that was being used at the time it was the dominant language. So I guess, as in every other case I can think of, the King James Onlyists fail. Thank you very much for your time.